The fastest British muscle wasn't born in Detroit. It came from tiny sheds that built V8 rockets. Watch how a Royal-owned shooting brake and a propane-burning roadster stack up against an Anglo-American icon and a near 200-mile-per-hour British missile. We're ranking strictly by verified top speed, slowest to fastest. No feelings, just numbers. I'll call out the loopholes, the price shocks, and the export weirdness. And yes, the top speed controversy lands at the end hard. Our number 2 car is the most controversial claim in British muscle. Our number 1 is the legend everyone thinks wins on aura alone. Panther Callista, 120 miles per hour. This retro roadster cost less than a hot hatchback, yet delivered genuine supercar vibes. Here's the kicker. It was so good, a Korean company tried to steal the design. Now the specs. Lightweight aluminum body, retro styling, Ford V6 engine in most versions. The Callista proves you don't need massive displacement. Just keep the weight down and gear it right for speed. Some versions even got V8 options. It carried proper GT gearing and weighed under a metric ton in some specs. The twist? After Panther went under, the design got copied by a Korean company. The shape reappeared as the Sangyong Callista, which annoyed purists. But the British-built originals are the heartbeat. Think of it as the opening chord, accessible speed, classic stance, and the first rung on our VMAX ladder. But here's the twist you won't see coming. The next car was owned by royalty, not kept as a showpiece, but driven. And it could cruise at speeds that embarrassed sports cars twice its price. Number 11, Reliant Scimitar GTE, 125 miles per hour. A proper shooting brake with long gearing, real luggage space, and royal approval. Princess Anne owned several and used one daily. It was a calm, fast cruiser, not a drag strip car. A British GT built to sit at high speed and stay there, using Ford V6 torque, with clean, honest aerodynamics to carry pace. Here's the lesson. You don't need a giant engine. Keep weight sensible, give it long gears, and it will cover ground quickly. The Royal Link matters too. It made the Scimitar feel cool, tough, and confidently quick without shouting about it. The Scimitar was the Royals' quiet weapon. Now the pace picks up. But here's the kicker. The next car was built in Britain, sold almost entirely to Japan, then re-imported by collectors who knew something the original buyers didn't. Number 10. MGR-V8, 135 miles per hour. On paper, it's a nostalgia special. 75% new parts wrapped around an MGB silhouette, Burr elm, Connolly leather, and a 3.9-liter Rover 5.8. Here's the key point. Most cars went to Japan. Demand there absorbed the bulk of production, which pushed prices and limited UK supply. Strip away the trim, and it still delivers real top speed with classic British ingredients. Tidy aero, sensible gearing, and that relaxed rover torque that keeps pulling past 100 miles per hour. The price versus performance math at launch was blunt. For similar money, quicker TVRs existed. The RV8 earned its following on style, build quality, and rarity. Think of it as a clear export story, built in Britain, sold mainly in Japan, then re-imported by collectors. The RV8 proves the formula worked, but that same engine, dropped into a wedge-shaped chassis 15 years earlier, hit 140 miles per hour and embarrassed cars twice its price. Most people have never heard of it. And that's exactly why it dominated SCCA racing, while Corvettes were still trying to figure out handling. Number 9. Triumph TR8, 140 miles per hour. The TR7's shape scared purists, but drop in the 3.5 Rover 5.8 and the wedge turns into a quiet missile. Rally teams took to it quickly. On the paperwork side, the FIA signed off Group 4 while Triumph was still ramping up production. The exact count of finished cars at approval is disputed. What matters for this list is simple. The competition cars ran, set times, and the road cars share the hardware that enables real top speed. The TR8 connects the pattern we've built: light body, Rover V8 torque, long gearing, with proof from motorsport. U.S. buyers got that pace on the road, and its 20 to 100 miles per hour shove on a flowing route humbled bigger names. The takeaway is clear. These cars don't need a dramatic launch. They build speed once rolling, and that's how you climb a V-Max chart. The oldest looking body in the room is about to lay down the nastiest mid-range of its era, and there's a propane twist you won't believe. But before the craft revival, a quick note on escalation. We're at 140 miles per hour and barely into the list. That means the top end gets serious, 170s and beyond. The next car dominated 20 to 80 miles per hour runs against contemporary supercars. Yet most American buyers drove it on propane, a genuine legal workaround that turned a British icon into a fuel oddity. Number 8. Morgan Plus 8. 145 miles per hour. In 20 to 80 miles per hour runs, the Morgan Plus 8 embarrassed contemporary supercars. An era brag no one saw coming from a car that looked like it belonged in a museum. The secret wasn't displacement. It was weight and mid-range torque. Here's the kicker. To beat U.S. emissions in the mid-70s and beyond, many American Market Plus 8s ran on propane. Not a meme. A genuine workaround that kept the model legal stateside. Propane Morgans became unicorns, scarcer, quirkier, and now collector catnip. Among British car nuts, the Plus 8's reputation as a country lane cruise missile was earned the old way. No ABS, no traction control, just steering feel like a wired nerve and a driveline that turns throttle into thrust. And unlike the TR8's bureaucratic dance, the Morgan's drama is mechanical purity. Remember this detail. That mid-range dominance foreshadows why later fiberglass TVRs terrorized everything between roundabouts. But here's where it gets wild. The next car was the flagship, the most powerful road car this British maker ever built. Rock stars and A-list celebrities lined up to buy it, and it could outrun most of what Hollywood drove. Number 7. Jensen Interceptor SP 147 miles per hour. The SP is the flagship, Jensen's most powerful road car, thanks to the 440 six-pack. 3 two-barrel carburetors feeding the big block V8 for serious airflow and sustained pull. That extra breathing is what pushes this heavy GT to verified high 100s and 40s, and why it earns its spot in the middle of this ranking. If the Scimitar was royalty's quiet favorite, the Interceptor was the celebrity choice for long-distance cruising, spacious, comfortable, and impossible to miss. Owners ranged from Tony Curtis, Frank Sinatra, Cher, and Cliff Richard. Think late nights, long highways, and a rear window big enough to watch your sins chase you. But the data isn't just vibe. The six-pack delivered the lungs to carry that steel body to a verified 147 miles per hour in period claims cross-checked by market histories, and owners who've seen the needles go very north of sensible will tell you the gearing lets it sit deep into triple digits without running out of breath. Here's the truth people miss. British muscle wasn't afraid of American iron when it served the mission. Jensen took Detroit displacement, wrapped it in West Bromwich tailoring, and built a GT that could run with the fastest of its day while carrying an actual conversation in the cabin. That duality, brute thrust plus long-distance civility, makes the SP a standout in the middleweights, and it breaks the pattern just enough to keep you guessing. Now, the next car wasn't supposed to exist. It was a late-night tablecloth sketch that escaped the restaurant and ended up embarrassing bigger brands. The build process? So tight that workers literally used a sledgehammer to bash in part of the firewall just to fit the engine. And the power-to-weight ratio? It humiliated names with 10 times the marketing budget. And gearing that won't quit push us into near 180 territory. Number 6. Ginetta G33. 150 miles per hour. Okay, this one's wild. The G33 wasn't supposed to exist as a mainstream model. It was a late-night tablecloth sketch that escaped the restaurant and ended up embarrassing bigger brands. Steel backbone chassis, glass fiber body, Rover 3.9 V8 up front, and a curb weight that made contemporary GTs look like moving vans. The formula is brutal. Low mass, big lungs, long legs. That's the British muscle pattern dialed to violence. The G33 proves pace per pound is the ultimate multiplier. You get that deep rover torque, a manual box, and gearing that lets the needle sweep past 140 without theatrics. Think of that as an attitude check. This wasn't a leather and walnut cruiser. It was built by people who cared more about the next 10 miles per hour than about a perfect paint seam. But here's where it gets wild. The next car was the most powerful road car this British maker ever built, thanks to 3 two-barrel carburetors feeding a big block V8. Rock stars and A-list celebrities lined up to buy it, and it could outrun most of what Hollywood drove. The setup sounds like 3 pianos inhaling at once, and the numbers back the noise. Number 5. TVR Chimera 500, 175 miles per hour. The press called it a nice grand tourer, the soft TVR. So why is it sitting above cars with triple carburetors and backbone chassis built for violence? Under the smoother ride and longer wheelbase hides a 5.0-liter rover-based V8, Chimera 500 Specie, roughly 340 horsepower and 320 pound-feet. Period tests recorded 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 4.1 seconds and a verified top speed around 175 miles per hour when given space. That's runway-grade performance with a glove box and a boot you can actually use. But here's where it gets wild. TVR stopped borrowing engines and built their own. We're talking a 75-degree flat-plane crank V8 designed with F1 logic. Compact block, featherweight, savage breathing. In Red Rose spec, it pumps out 440 horsepower naturally aspirated. That's nearly 98 horsepower per liter without turbos or superchargers. No ABS, no traction control. Steering so sharp it might as well be wired to your pulse. The next entry is the anti-supercar, the near 200 miles per hour British 4-seat missile you weren't supposed to afford. And it ignites the comment section harder than anything we've covered. Number 4. Marcos Mantis, 179 miles per hour. Okay, this one divides people at first glance. A car that looks like a one-line doodle just cracked the top 4. That should feel impossible, but the supercharger doesn't care about aesthetics. Beneath the controversial shell sits pure British speed logic. Fiberglass over a tubular frame, serious power, long legs. Supercharged V8 builds broke the 500 horsepower ceiling. But even the naturally aspirated road cars had the gearing and aero cleanliness to run deep into the 100s and 70s. Why it matters in our pattern? The Mantis shows that low mass and sound fundamentals beat styling. Fiberglass reduces weight, so the engine has less mass to accelerate and can sustain higher speeds with the power available. Marcos built in high-speed stability with a wide track for lateral grip, a low center of gravity for reduced weight transfer, and a slight nose-down rake to limit front-end lift at speed. The Mantis never became a mainstream icon like the Countach, but owners and period track reports show it could outrun more expensive, well-known brands at club events and in straight-line runs. It looked unusual, which put some buyers off, yet the chassis, low weight, and power-to-weight figures gave it genuine pace. In Britain, a sleeper isn't always discreet or pretty. Sometimes it's a rare car you've simply never watched at full speed. The next car took that formula and made it famous. Compact design that looks deceptively small, because it is. This is the car that redefined British muscle in the 90s, the spark that lit the fuse. And the numbers backed the noise. Number 3. TVR Griffith 500, 179 miles per hour. We just jumped 30 miles per hour from 4th to 3rd. That's not a gap. That's a chasm that separates the fast from the genuinely violent. The Griffith is the spark that redefined British muscle in the 90s. It looks compact because it is. That's the trick. Less frontal area and mass mean your horsepower buys more speed per mile, and the Griff spends it wisely. Verified figures pin these in the high 100s and 70s, and the way they get there is why people still swear by them. The Griff wrapped brutal performance in a shape that felt hand-built, alive, and slightly unhinged. No ABS, no traction control, steering that's 2 turns lock to lock and talks constantly. A Griffith 500 delivered near supercar pace for sports car money. while matching or exceeding their verified top speeds in the high 170s and serving sub 5 seconds on 60 runs. Measured another way, its purchase price divided by verified miles per hour beats softer, heavier rivals by a clear margin. As for rarity, TVR built fewer Griffith 500s than Chimeras, and that lower production run, combined with the 5.0-liter Rover-based V8. Compact fiberglass body, and notably short steering ratio, creates sustained demand. But here's where the game changes completely. TVR stops borrowing engines and builds their own. We're talking a 75-degree flat-plane crank V8, designed with F1 logic. Compact block, featherweight, savage breathing. The next entry is the near 200-mile-per-hour British missile you weren't supposed to afford, and it ignites the comment section harder than anything we've covered. This one is about to rewrite the rules. "440 horsepower from a 4.5-liter V8. No turbos, no superchargers, just air, fuel, and a flat-plane crank screaming like it escaped from Le Mans. This is where British muscle stops borrowing and starts engineering from the sump up. The AJP-8 is a 75-degree flat-plane crank V8 designed with race logic. Compact block, featherweight, savage breathing. Period testing puts -60 around 3.9 seconds and verified terminal speeds in the high 100s and 80s, with the owner clubs and factory lore pushing that headline claim near 193. The Cerbera is the anti-supercar. No digital crutches. A cabin that's part spaceship, part pub joke. With instruments tucked beneath the wheel and door releases you discover like Easter eggs. The driving experience is a dare. TVR expects you to be present, and when you are, the car pays you in velocity. This is the near 200 miles per hour British 4-seat missile you weren't supposed to afford. And it hit new showrooms for less than the Continentals you'd struggle to keep in sight beyond 120. Red Rose cars are unicorns. Even if you anchor the Cerbera in the verified high 180s, it's still the most outrageous British V8 of its era on raw top-end efficiency. But we're ranking strictly by top speed, and that sets up a fight. Because the next car doesn't care about boutique engineering, it cares about fear. Number 1. Shelby Cobra 427, 190 miles per hour. In 1965, the Cobra 427 hit speeds that most modern sports cars still can't reach, 60 years later, and it's still faster than a Porsche 911 Carrera. On paper, the Cobra's aero looks like a parachute. In practice, gearing and displacement punch a hole through the air until you're deep into the 100s and 80s. Period high-speed runs and gearing sheets support numbers north of 180 for the 427 Roadsters in the right trim, with long straights and brave throttles. Drag strip heroics, legendary. Still, the Cobra's myth fuels the drama. Rockstar energy, pit lane swagger, and the simple fact that it was built to beat Ferrari. The chassis is raw, the cabin is elemental, and the straight-line authority is biblical. If the Cerbera is a surgeon's scalpel, the Cobra is a warhammer. Different centuries, same outcome. If you accept the most optimistic owner club's Cerbera figures, it could outrun the Cobra on absolute top end. But when you stick to the hardest cross-checked numbers, the Cobra's 185 plus sits on firmer ground. That's why it holds the crown on a strict VMAX list. 2 different eras, 2 different weapons, same target. The horizon disappearing faster than your survival instincts. That's British muscle hot-wired. Lighter, scarier, faster. Your turn. What's the most underrated car on this list, and why does it deserve more love? If you had to own one of these for a year, no garage queens, which keys are you taking and why? Which British V8 missile did we miss? Name it, give its verified top speed and where that figure comes from. Hit subscribe and watch the next deep dive.